Originating in the late 1800s as new technology allowed for the mass production of clothing, fast fashion is a rapidly growing industry. It prioritizes profit over all else, allowing its rapid growth, a recipe for success in any capitalistic state. A practice usually outpacing lawmakers, the industry is often ahead of the curve on environment and workplace governance, operating without many widespread regulations for most of its span. Consumeristic culture, along with ever-evolving fashion trends and rules, necessitates mass production of new clothing to satiate the masses. To keep up with never-ending demand, companies turn to the inexpensive, exploited labor of fast fashion factories, trusting that those under the employ will have no better options to feed their families. With this reality, it becomes a double-edged sword of costs, on the one hand supporting a system designed to maximize profits at the expense of the vulnerable, but one so ingrained in society that without it, many of these workers and their families could starve. Separated from the conditions of production, consumers can buy with a clear conscience, utilizing this distance to forget their own fault in the damage.
Nowadays, with thrifting becoming more mainstream, some headway is being made with combating overproduction. The issue is, as prices soar, those who relied on these cheaper stores must turn back to the cheaply produced, inexpensive fast fashion options, creating a vicious cycle. This is why solutions must address all of these issues, not just aim at those with the affluence and buying power to shape the market. It is both an environmental and a societal issue, with both sides raising valid concerns. The effects of this inequality span geographic boundaries, as people in places like Bangladesh and China are exploited by countries with stronger labor protections for manufacturing purposes. Being such highly populated areas, people are less likely to reject or complain about the appalling work environments they find themselves in, needing the income to survive. There are many institutions attempting to solve this issue, looking out for citizens where local governments do not. A great example of this is the nonprofit Remake, who managed to collect an estimated $7.5 billion in unpaid garment worker wages from 16 brands after launching a viral social media campaign called Pay Up. Beyond these movements, it is the place of the government to protect its citizens as well. Laws must aim to regulate consumption, with assurances of legal benchmarks for water wasting, synthetic plastic production, as well as worker conditions, including pay. In an example of forward thinking, Sweden is also attempting to introduce taxes on chemicals in clothing.
On the individual level, consumers essentially have a few choices: buying less, buying secondhand, buying from sustainable brands, or making their own clothes. The best way to kill the harmful fast fashion practices is to kill the profits while incentivizing eco-friendly production methods. Fighting businesses with goodwill and purchasing strikes only goes so far and will always have defectors, but they will always act in their own self-interest. Mandating safe workplace conditions and fair pay to the producers will harm the bottom lines of companies and force them to uphold societal standards for treatment of humans. Setting the maximums in water usage, chemical levels, and microplastic production will mitigate harmful byproducts for fear of fines and jail time.
The issue with sweeping reform is that those in power, largely there because of their own profits, will be hesitant to kneecap a profitable business model, not to mention the backlash in the United States to an eco-friendly process aimed to tax big business and enforce rights to fair wages. Systemic action can only go so far as the individual momentum takes it, meaning a paradigm shift in consumption habits of the general public. Placing an emphasis on community-centered support with more clothing exchange initiatives and donations to homeless shelters can deal both with the accumulation of excess things and connecting the gap between those with and without. Realistically, this paradigm shift seems a long way off in our current mindset in the States. But we can look to Norwegian countries as models for communities banding together in a positive sense of place. For example, in Denmark, this year the Copenhagen Fashion Week launched a sustainability action plan to reduce its environmental impact, aiming for zero waste by 2023. The plan sets a minimum of 17 standards for its designers, including using at least 50% organic, upcycled, or recycled materials, sustainable packaging, zero waste set designs, and a ban on destroying unsold clothes.